Hey everyone, welcome back. Today is April 29th and today I'll be sharing with you one of our garden tours for our 2020 Central Florida Zone 9. A lot of flowers opening up in the garden. We have some sunflowers, zinnias, and all sorts of flowers setting on our vegetable plants. We've been harvesting a lot of food already and I can't wait to share with you all that. At the end of this video, I'll be sharing with you a hyperlapse harvest that I put together of my children and I harvesting our carrots. So I hope you stick around for that. So our entry to the garden, recently we had a bunch of rain, like 2 or 3 days of crazy rain, which was great, almost too much rain for the garden. But we were very thankful because the rest of our property has been struggling, very dry. Our fruit trees are very happy, the garden's happy, and our Queen's Wreath has just shot off a ton of blooms. Look at how beautiful that is. Since our last video, I threw some zinnias in here. My peas weren't doing too hot, so I went ahead and replaced those. Just figured it'd be less maintenance. Just have some zinnias kind of overflowing this wheelbarrow. Plus we drive in right here and most guests come in through our breezeway, so it's a nice pop of color there. So I recently harvested a ton of collard greens and we do have them growing back. I was having some bug issues, still am, but not as bad. I just took some soapy water and just soaked them after I had harvested them, hoping that it would kill any bugs that were on there. And so far, some of the leaves are coming back pretty nice with not too many holes in them. You can still eat them this way too. If bugs and little holes don't freak you out, you can easily wash them off. I actually just did a video, my first cooking video ever, with a recipe for collard greens and kale. It's a mixed recipe. If you guys want to watch that, I'll drop that in the description below. If you want to see more recipes, basically I love sharing anything that we harvest from the garden and show you what I do with it and how I store it. So please let me know, comment below if you want to see some more videos. Over here I have some lettuce. I'm really not taking care of this area over here too much. It's got a lot of weeds and I didn't really get a good germination rate on my seeds. I don't think I really put enough out, but I still got some lettuce growing. Over here I've got my mint and my basil. I'm going to actually trim that basil back and let it keep growing. Some of it's going to seed. That's an easy way that you can kind of keep your basil fresh. You don't ever really want to eat basil that is starting to flower. It's just not going to taste good. So I'm going to just snip these back. These are fine. Just don't learn the hard way like I did. So over here I have some marigolds, which are great for repelling pests. A lot of bugs don't like the smell of marigolds, so I always like to incorporate those into the garden. These were grown from seed. Easy way to save the seeds is when your flowers start to die off and they kind of look like this at that stage and they're dry. All you have to do is kind of wiggle the seeds out of it and just drop them back into a pot. So my strawberry tower is doing really well. Look at those flowers. I don't have a ton of ripe ones on here right now because they don't last very long. My children just absolutely love them. They fight over these strawberries. Usually my 2-year-old is the one that is snagging them first. And they just have a lot of fun. They're so delicious compared to your store-bought. Definitely growing your own vegetables are going to be completely different taste than what you're going to find at a farm stand or the grocery store. Just eating vegetables and fruits fresh the day of from your garden is just an amazing experience. Here's our Loofah Trellis that's doing really well. We have a couple loofahs growing. And I have some loofahs in the pantry I'll show you guys here in a little bit. So all the flowers here are actually going to turn into loofahs. Here's another one. And they give off these pretty flowers. Usually they're blooming in the morning, and towards the afternoon they kind of curl up like that. One day maybe I can get a video early to show you guys. Look at how beautiful that is. Here are some onions that I harvested just a couple days ago. I have them out here drying and curing before I take them in the house. If you take them in your house too soon, they will start to smell up your house. So here's my onion haul. And this is what my sweet onion basket looked like. I'm actually going to plant these again. I haven't actually pulled all of them. I've left my smaller bulbs in the ground just to see what they would do. Here's some succulents that I have. These succulents here actually, I propagated those from the succulents that I have here and made little arrangements. Same with this one. And I'm thinking about doing a video, and these actually I've propagated from my large rosemary bush. And I think this is a variety. I'm not sure the name, but it looks so pretty because it just falls out of the pot. Look at that. And this is from one little clipping. I'm going to show you a clipping and what I'm doing to grow more rosemary here in my kitchen. And I love making rosemary sweet tea. Our favorite drinks. Whenever we have guests over, that's something we like to make. So over here I have a gondo pea, or gondo bean. And here's my little herb garden. This is something that's close to our door. Our kitchen's actually right here. So it's easy for me to just come out here and snip some of our herbs. My basil is not looking too hot. Usually it doesn't do well in our zone in this heat. So typically at this time of year, I will constantly replace the basil if it's going to be outside, or keep a basil plant inside. So here's just some fresh chives that we like to use in our soups or our potatoes. So over here we've got our Dinosaur Kale that is doing awesome still. Got one plant that's fallen over. My 2-year-old loves to just come out here and rip leaves and eat them, which is great. Because she is probably one of our healthier kids. She'll eat anything raw out of the garden, including okra. So over here I have my celery. Basically I'm just harvesting from the bottom on these celery plants. And if I have any bad pieces of celery, if something like this is turning, I'll just snip it off and feed it to our chickens. Over here, I recently pulled some baby carrots. That is actually in our fridge right now. I'll show you those in a minute. But here, oh, I got a little flower. These are called shooting star eggplants. I started from seed. I have 2 plants that are doing great. And, well, I have most of my plants that are doing great. I don't know what's happening to these. They're curling down. So if any of y'all have had this happen before, and you know what to do to make it not happen, let me know. I've put some stakes here because you do want to have some kind of staking when these plants start setting fruit, because they get really heavy. The eggplants hang down. We're not huge eggplant fans, but they do look so beautiful, and they can put off a ton of food for the family. So I actually have staged here some yellow bell peppers. I'm sorry, banana peppers that I'll be putting on the sides here to replace where my baby carrots were. I actually need to do a lot of weeding here. I've popped some okras back in here. I need to plant some more okras. These I actually started from seed when we were starting to, when the government was shutting down our nation and to quarantine. Kind of was a little scared myself and started starting more seeds, more food. Thought, you know what, we need to get ready for what's happening. We are not going to be disappointed if we have an overload of food. This is something easy we can always store and can. So either way, I've got extra plants. Our desert roses are doing pretty good. They still are shooting some blooms. think I've covered our small garden. And we're going to go over here to our other side of our garden. I've got more Dinosaur Kale, huge producers in the garden for our zone. So definitely, if you haven't tried it, don't make the same mistake that I did. I've stuck my nose up at kale for so long. Here are our roses that are doing awesome. Look at all those blooms that are popping up. This is so pretty. This is probably the best that these plants have done. I think we put these in here last year. We usually trim them back really small, but I kind of let these get a little bigger. And here are some of our snow peas. The kids have been having fun harvesting those. Sugar and some sugar daddy peas. Here's our zinnias. They're starting to open up. And my 2-year-old loves to just come and pick whatever she wants, so we're missing some blooms there. So recently we did a harvest of carrots, which I'm going to show you a hyperlapse harvest at the end of this video of our kids and I harvesting these carrots. I've recently went through here and planted some okra. I'm working on a video to show you how to properly plant your plants into the ground, because they can be planted incorrectly and you can kill your plants, which I have done many a times. So I feel like that's a helpful tip to share with new gardeners. So I should have that for you soon. But recently had some squash that just were struggling, so I went ahead and pulled those up. They were actually the squash that I thought I actually lost to some mice that were digging up all my seeds when I started my seeds. We had a very bad mice problem. We have some new animals down at our barn, and we had a problem that we were trying to take care of. The mice were actually coming over to the garden and digging up my seeds. So thankfully, we did have some seeds that survived. We had 3 squash plants that survived that, but they just didn't do well. And I'm actually going to replant with some extra okra that I started. So here are my grape cherry tomato plants. They are looking pretty rough. I put these in last fall. Typically I will go around and pull all of my plants and do a complete replanting. This year I did not do that. I basically trimmed back a lot of my tomato plants and let them come back up. Let some of the ugly plants like this stay in and continue to produce until they didn't produce at all. So I still have flowers coming out of this plant. I'm just basically trimming off some of the dead pieces of this tomato plant. So if your plants start to look like this, just let them do their thing. I kind of always was worried about how they looked and spending a lot of time on tomato plants. And this year I just let them go. Sometimes removing the suckers from them and sometimes not. So these have done pretty good for me and produced a ton of fruit. I've recently pulled some of these tomatoes. I'll be replanting. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to be doing over here. But oh, one of my sunflowers has opened up over here. These are all Mongolian Sunflowers. These can grow up to 11, 12 feet tall. We actually had one this past winter that was over 10 feet. So here's a few surviving squash plants. I've actually harvested my first Scalloped Squash. And I want to show y'all how beautiful these things are. Look. I don't know if y'all can see that. But how cool. I've never grown these before. And they are definitely really pretty looking. I have one in my refrigerator. I will show y'all here in a minute. Time I failed to show y'all my blueberry bushes, but we have blueberry bushes that basically line our whole garden, and they are producing like crazy right now. I probably get maybe a half a cup or a cup a day that comes into the kitchen. That does not mean that we don't eat them directly off the plant, because our kids and our neighbors are constantly coming over here and picking our blueberries. So these blueberry bushes actually produce twice a year, which is awesome. So we'll get a harvest now in the spring, and again, look at that, again in the fall. And we have these big clusters everywhere. We just picked a bunch today. So we have them that wrap both sides of our garden. But I think that completes this side of the garden. I'm going to show you what's going on over here, and we're going to go into the kitchen. So here's some goodies from the garden. I've got a few peppers I've harvested. I have a lot more peppers coming in. This is just a bag of green beans. I'm constantly harvesting these. At least every couple days we'll get a nice bag. I usually wait till I get a good amount of beans that we can cook down for dinner. Here's some small carrots. Kind of saving those for a roast. And what else we got down here? Some celery from the garden. And here's some nice fresh corn. This is actually from my stepson's grandfather. It's nice to have farmer friends in the family. I've got some sprouts that I've grown in the kitchen. This is something easy you can grow on your counter. You don't have to have a big garden. Even if you're off season, this is something you can grow all year around. It only takes 5 days, and I top these on my salads. I put them on top of my eggs, any type of sandwich. You can put it on any type of meal. And over here, we've got some bananas that we've been harvesting from our banana trees on our other property. And some oranges from our orange trees that we've had for a while. Here's a squash I harvested today. This is the first time I've ever grown this type of squash. It's a scalp squash, and it's so beautiful. I also have some homemade guava jam. We have some guava trees on our property. And I think that's about it in the refrigerator. Here's just some fresh cut zinnias and rosemary and mint. We always have a large abundance of all of these in the garden, and it's so nice to have a nice bouquet of flowers throughout the house, and we didn't have to pay for them. They just came right out of our garden. Anytime we have guests over, my girls love harvesting them, making their own arrangements, and sending them with our guests and shipping them over to our neighbors. Some blueberries that we have from our blueberry bushes. Here's another thing I'd like to show you guys. I'm actually going to be doing a video on how to grow your own microgreens, sprouts, and scrap food in your kitchen. So you don't even have to have a garden. It's just something more a survival mode that a lot of us are kind of getting worried and want to be able to grow things even if we don't have a big garden available. This is something real easy that you can grow for your family. Here's some fresh eggs, more flowers. I've got some rosemary here that I'm trying to grow roots with to make more rosemary trees. That's another video I want to do here soon. And here's some of those seeds from the Seminole pumpkin that a friend gave me earlier. I already planted these, so I'm super excited for this variety in the garden because I've never grown it, and we can store these for up to a year in our pantry. So that's a awesome survival food. So I'm going to take you guys back out to the garden. Oh, I got to show you our pantry. Here's some onions that we have out here. And my house is kind of messy. We've got toys everywhere. There's our pantry. So here's my recent onion harvest. And I basically just have these tied up with a string. There's fancy ways that you can braid them and store them, but this was just an easy way for me to store them. Over here, I've got some loofahs just hanging out to dry, and I've made some homegrown loofah soaps. So this is something I like to keep on hand and make my own soaps with. Here's a ton of zinnia heads that I've harvested over the last season to save, to either throw them out in our property, do seed bombs, or maybe someday I will tediously take the seeds and sell them as well. So, and there's tons of seeds in these loofahs. Here's something else in our freezer. This is some okra we harvested recently. Okra is really easy to store. If you don't have time to pickle it, you can easily chop it up, throw it in soups, or what we like to do, we do a lot of fish frying, the fish we catch. And okra goes so well with it. So we just chop it up, throw it in a bag with flour, shake it, and store it. It's so easy. It's almost the easiest thing to store from the garden. And then we take it out, throw it straight in the fryer, and sprinkle it with some Everglades, and it's so good. So here's our other garden. I recently planted some potatoes and they're just starting to come up. Right here, y'all can see those. I usually do not plant potatoes. I've planted them a couple times. They're really fun to harvest because when it's time to harvest, the kids come out here and they're digging in the ground. It's like they're finding gold, and it's super fun to harvest if you have children. I only planted potatoes because I knew that they would store really well, and with the situation that we're in, I figured, you know what, let's go ahead and plant some potatoes. So we have potatoes growing, and I think they're actually going to look really nice in the garden this season. I've got a ton of different peppers over here. We've been harvesting a lot of peppers. I'll show you here some of the flowers and some of the fruit. Here's a red bell pepper coming in right there. I've got some jalapenos over here. They're doing well. Oh, look at that one. So I have different color peppers. I have purple, yellow, green. But some are doing good, some are not. And these have all been in since fall. Over here, I've recently put in some more grape cherry tomatoes, which are doing awesome. And they're already setting fruit. Let me try to see if I can find some for you. Here's some. Look at that, little flowers. Here we go. Y'all, the first thing I ever grew, actually the first thing that ever survived in my garden was cherry tomatoes. And I fell in love with them. At first, when they started to flower, I didn't even know that flowers turned into fruit. And this was just 6 years ago. And now I'm an avid gardener with a huge garden, which knew nothing about it. But that was just a simple excitement that I got from gardening, is watching the flowers come out and the fruit just emerge. So I have a few of those grape cherry tomatoes over here. I still have some tomato plants that I planted in the fall, this is some of them here. And I've been harvesting them. I've actually been harvesting a lot green and frying them, which are very tasty because it's really hard to grow any kind of big tomato in the summer here in our zone unless you have some shade cloth or you have a way to control irrigation, because the rain that just came, here's what happens, is my tomatoes are busting. So this one, I recently picked off a lovely hornworm. As you can see, this is what hornworms do. And if you do not find these guys within the first day, they will eat your entire plant away. This one's pretty much halfway eaten. So it's very important to make sure that you're checking on your garden. Make it fun. Send the kids into the garden to check for caterpillars and worms, and make it fun. Make it a competition. The kids always like running through the garden and trying to protect mommy's plants. Here's a nice bunch of grape tomatoes. So they'll be ready to eat here in a week or so, I think. So these are doing really good. Another grape cherry tomato. Uh-oh. Looks like I have a hornworm on this one too. I need to check that out. So here are our okras. This is a new variety. This is the first year I've ever grown them. It's called Jing okra. Jing orange okra, and they're so beautiful. Look at this. I have not eaten them yet, but I will tell you what they taste like in the next video. I hope they're just as good as Clemson spineless. That's what we have over here. So these are just very nice. We do grow a lot of okra, as y'all can see, because it's so easy to store and we eat a lot of it, and it's really easy to grow in our zone through the summer and the spring. Over here are our pole beans, and y'all, these are Dollar General 2 for $1 packets, and I always turn my nose up at Dollar General seeds because it doesn't say, no GMO or organic. I typically like to, only buy organic seeds or non-GMO seeds. And I thought, you know what, I just want to try it. I want to see how they grow differently than other seeds. And I was pretty impressed because I got a really good germination rate from these beans. This is 2 packets of pole beans right here, and they are producing like crazy. You can grow a load of food for $2 here of seed packets. So actually I believe there's 4 seed packets. I can't remember if I've started 2 or 4, but I do remember the packets were 2 for $1. So right there, guys, is a way that you can save your family money and make it fun, make it, in the evenings, when this gets shaded, we as a family come over here and pick green beans. We kind of make it a competition sometimes, like who can pick the most. Our kids eat them raw right off the plant, and they're so delicious. We don't spray with any chemicals here, or use any synthetic fertilizers. So either way, I feel it's a better green bean from the store because it's fresh and we're taking care of it. So here's our zinnias, and boy, there's lots of noise today. So here is a giant variety of zinnia that's doing really well. These are the flowers that you saw in my kitchen. And I believe that completes this side of the garden. I want to show you guys, my husband recently rescued some caladiums on the side of the road. He was passing a caladium farm and saw that there was a load of dirt by the road with basically these little tiny bulbs, and he couldn't help it. He went ahead and picked them up, and we're going to see if we can't rescue these little babies. So the girls and I got some soil and went ahead and planted all these, and hopefully they will do well. If they don't, oh well, we paid absolutely nothing for them. Here's my wheelbarrow with our bush beans in them. Look at that. So I actually need to come out here and get harvesting. But I really like how that turned out right here. They'll actually grow a little bigger and kind of fall over that. Look how pretty that is. This is the kids' play area here in the garden. So they like to paint and do Play-Doh and anything that's messy. We have them do it outside. They have just a bunch of little fairy garden toys they play with. And it's just a nice shaded area for them to enjoy. Oh, I have some loofahs over here. I wanted to show you guys. I had a lot of loofah plants that I sold to our local nursery for the first time. And I had some plants behind them to sell, which we, of course, went into a nationwide shutdown. So I was had some extra loofah plants on my hands. So I went ahead and just planted some in areas that we could just find. And I'll show you guys what I'm working on over here in my little gardening area. Over here in my little nursery, I've got some papayas I started from seeds. I'd really like to show you guys my fruit trees one day. If you guys want to see all of our fruit trees, and we call it our food forest. But we actually took the seeds from a friend of ours and started our papaya trees that we have in our front yard, and started some more that we're gonna put out there as well. I have some peppers, some more okra, I had extra left over, and some loofah plants. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with those yet. I have some Seminole Pumpkins that I just started out here. I think I'm gonna plant my Seminole Pumpkins over here. I did do some butternut squash over here last season. It looks really nice. It just kind of filled up this area, and I think maybe the Seminole Pumpkins will do good. We'll get quite a bit of sun here, and then mid-afternoon they'll be shaded, and some, actually right now it's probably close to about 3 o'clock, they'll get a little bit more sun as well. So I think that's completed my garden tour, and So I think that's completed my garden tour. I really have a whole lot of other exciting things to show you. We've just started a new plot in the front yard. I'll have some pictures I'll be posting on Instagram of what our plans, and maybe you guys can put some input on what you would like to see out there. We have some ideas of what we'd like to do, but I always like to get everyone's input of what does well in our area. But it's going to be some farm dreams that are coming true that I'll be sharing with you soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, found it helpful. If it did, please share, like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Got big plans for this plot out here. Super excited. My husband and stepson's out here. They just threw down some wood chips and putting down some irrigation, some drip line. And this is really sandy, so we're putting this down to hopefully break down and make some good soil.